Johnny Salerno, man, thank you so much for taking some time today to chat with me on the podcast here, mate. We've been trying to tee this up for a long time.
Okay.
But you're a super busy dude, which is so great to see. So yeah, I'm stoked that we're able to find some time today. So thank you so much.
Very fun, mate. I'm glad we could make it happen finally.
Yeah, awesome, man. Me too. Like I've been, we haven't actually met in person, I don't think,
No.
ever. But yeah, a lot of mutual friends and connections. But I've been following what you've been doing, I guess on Instagram mainly for the past few years. And the thing that I find the most inspiring about seeing what you do kind of through that media is just like the variety of artists and musicians that you are playing with and touring with, and whatever you put up is just such a killing level. Every time I see you play, like everything you put up is so great. It's so great. So yeah, keep doing it, man. I love seeing it. But I guess like on that point, like you know, in your career, like at the moment, you are really playing with such a wide variety of in a wide variety of musical environments and situations. And so yeah, I guess let's start there. Was that something that like you always wanted to be as a player? Like, did you always want to be someone who was super versatile, or
it's
is
very
it something you fell into?
it's actually funny, bro, because I kind of, sometimes see myself as a bit of a one-trick pony, especially these days. But yeah, look, like growing up, I kind of grew up playing my dad's wedding reception band from when I was like I was going to my dad's gigs, getting up and playing with his wedding reception band from when I was like 7 or 8. By the time I was like 9 or 10, I was kind of like filling in for the drummer. Like when if he'd take a night off, I'd fill in. And then by I think the age of just before I was 12, I kind of joined that band, and then I was doing, a couple of gigs a week, and that stuff's just an awesome kind of apprenticeship, because I was kind of learning to read and studying with my teacher at the time. But yeah, we were like reading charts, like sometimes a floor show would come in and you'd have to read a bunch of charts. But you're doing your dinner music set where you're playing a bit of Latin, a bit of jazz, which, to be honest, I didn't even feel like I'd reuse those skills until I got to doing Dancing with the Stars in 2020. And I was like, oh my God, I've got to pull a pair of brushes out. I was like, what am I going to do here?
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. So there's that, there's times where I definitely feel like I'm not versatile enough, yeah, in terms of the variety of gigs, I love doing different stuff, and that's when I started out. That's what I wanted to do. I suppose I've fallen into kind of a pocket of artists and a certain type of playing, which sometimes I feel like I'm booked to do the same sort of thing, which is kind of nice that you say that you see me as quite versatile.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So, but yeah, look, starting out, I always wanted to be able to just play lots of different styles.
Yeah, sure. I think that's a pretty common thing for younger players. But and for me as well. Like when I was growing up, I was kind of given the advice to learn to play as much as possible, and then later on down the track you can potentially hone in on what you really enjoy doing. But do you think, like, you've obviously seen like so much in the industry develop, and you're playing at like the top of it all at the moment. So from your perspective, do you think that there is as much of a need to grow up like with that versatility in mind as like something that's really important? Or do you think like in today's music scene it's kind of better, quote unquote better, to be like a more specialized player?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, man. It's a good question. Because I mean, there's certain guys that I love that are more focused on they kind of just do one thing, but they do it really well. But I think I don't know. I think just having a handle on heaps of different styles and I don't know, it just broadens your horizons, doesn't it? Just makes you makes you a better musician. And then, you know, doing what we do, you know, essentially being freelance guys, you know, you never know what situation you're going to be thrown in. So I think if you can broaden your horizons and have, you know, a handle on lots of different styles and, you know, just keep that, be able to stick your hand here and there, it's just going to make your life easier, you know, when you get thrown into certain situations. Yeah, like,
sure.
I mean, even with, you know, my main gig, like we're playing with John Stevens, you know, it's quite he needs kind of a specific thing, and it's definitely more hard hitting. So sometimes I come off the road, and that band is such a well-oiled machine. Like, we've been playing together for so long that it feels like a bit of a Mack truck at times, which is beautiful when you're in the middle of a tour or whatever. Sometimes you get off and you just get called for a gig around town, and you really do feel like a fish out of water. You know what I mean? You haven't had to play quiet. You haven't had to play, I don't know, like a lot, you know, lots of shuffles or something that's a bit more loosey goosey, or you know, it's more, you know, kind of straight eight, straight down the middle kind of thing, which is kind of a bit of a comfort zone for me. I've always found that easier. So I guess if you can, you know, keep that stuff going on the side and always work on that stuff, it's just going to make your life easier if you get called for something you wouldn't normally get called for, you know?
Sure. Yeah, sure. And I guess that's it. It's really interesting you bring that up, like the need to, like, keep your skills, you know, ticking along in certain areas that you maybe don't play every day, especially if you're touring. You know, you've got minimal time to you know, do anything, let alone practice sometimes.
Right.
So yeah, it can be a really a tricky one to kind of stay like nimble, I guess, musically and chops wise. But that is actually something I wanted to ask you about. Like, I think one time when we were speaking about trying to get a time together, you were kind of finishing up with one artist and then just about to start with another artist, and kind of that quick transition from one to the other. So when you're in a situation like that where say you've been out with someone for a few weeks and then you're home for a day or so and then you're out with someone else, what's your, like, approach to that transition time? You know, like, are you starting to listen to the tunes when you're on the road, or you really try and 100%. Keep it separate? Or
I think look, listening is a massive thing, because I'm kind of a little bit old school. Like, I can start out, you know, if I start out with an artist and I'm writing a bunch of charts, I find that I just can't ditch the charts for a long time. So the best way for me to get inside the music and kind of feel really comfortable and then just have the most fun is for me to just, whether I love the artist's music or not, I'll just douse myself in it. You know what I mean? Like, if I've got the time and I know a tour's coming up in a month's time, I'll listen to just that for 3 to 4 weeks prior. You know, whether I like it or whether I don't, it'll be in the car, could be while I'm freaking shaving my bald head. I'll just have it on at all times. You know, in the plane, even if I'm falling asleep in the back of the 7-seater on tour, I'll just still have it, you know, in my sound isolated headphones. And I just find that way it just becomes part of me, you know, and then I don't have to think about it. Like, it becomes second nature. That's how I have the most fun. But then when you're doing those quick transitions, like, I think we were talking where we were trying to find a time around the time I was finishing Pete Murray, like, I think it was like on the 12th of Jan, and I was starting Suzi Quatro on the 14th of Jan. So the crossover, and I did the first 5 shows of the Pete Murray tour, and I came home on Christmas Eve with COVID. That kind of I had like a little plan that I was like, I'm gonna have Christmas with the family, and around Boxing Day because Suzi's mostly revision, I've been playing with her for 10 years now. I thought I'm going to do a good brush up for 4 or 5 days. I'll get in the room, I'll get my hands across stuff, and I'll be feeling quite comfortable. But COVID kind of eliminated that for 4 days.
Oh no.
So I was like, okay, I had to go back to really just listening prep, and then I think I came home and I had like a day to kind of just prep myself on the drums. And I didn't feel as comfortable at rehearsal. By the time rehearsals were over, I was fine. But if I had that time and I went with my usual method, which is like heaps of listening, and then I gave myself a good allocated amount of time on the drums, I would have felt completely comfortable. By the time I hit rehearsal, I would have just been like, this is nothing. It's fine. But instead, it probably took till, I don't know, gig 2, gig 3, to feel completely comfortable, like it was second nature.
Sure.
I guess, you deal with what you've got in front of you, don't you?
Yeah, for sure. That's really, it's great to hear like that from you, because you've got so much experience now doing this kind of thing, and it's great to hear that like you've found a method that works, because I think like sometimes it can be really hard to really like create a formula for a way to like get into a gig and really like internalize it. So it's to hear that is something that really works for you. I'm sure it is really valuable advice to anyone who's trying to get into, they've got a new artist that they're working with or transitioning quickly. So just a bunch of listening and like allocated, like dedicated time to play is great. So again, like something I was going to ask was, if you are, you're presented with a new artist who you've never worked with before, you don't really know their music, but you've been booked for a tour or whatever. What's your process? It sounds like you do write charts. You write yourself charts, and then you read the charts.
Like I said, it all depends on the time frame. So when I first got called to start playing with Suzi, I think I had at least a month to get prepared. So then I'm comfortable and I'm like, okay, this is going to be, I've got like 22, 24 songs to learn. And I put them in a playlist and I start listening, and in my travels, I'm just making notes, in my head though, okay, that bridge is weird. It's a 10-bar section instead of an 8-bar section. Okay, there's an accent that goes into a breakdown there. I'll just be making mental notes, but with the constant listening, as that section comes up, I'm like, there's that section, just kind of ticking things off in my head. And then I'll find like, after a couple of weeks, I'll just sit at the drums and I'll roughly be able to play things. Then it's just, it's more of a, let's get comfortable with things. But say with Pete, pretty sure when I got the call to first do Pete's gig, it was to fill in for Andy Fissenden, and it was, I think I only had a week or two from memory. And there was a few tunes. So I was like, okay, I've got a fair bit on my plate the next couple of weeks. I have to chart. So I pretty much charted most of the set, except maybe the singles that I'd heard on the radio before. So they were kind of just already in there somewhere. And then, but I found myself using those charts, like I said, for a while, which is fine. Like, and I like to have them on an iPad or somewhere that's discreet, because I still like to have, my eyes up. Most of these gigs that I'm talking about aren't like a new school playback situation where, there's clicks and cues. Pete's a singer-songwriter. So I find that first and foremost, to cut a gig like that, having in-ears and having his acoustic guitar up in my ears is the most important thing in the whole gig, because, it's driven, he's written the songs on acoustic guitar. It's driven by that. So whatever, if the band's feeling a bit wonky, if he's feeling things a little bit up, wherever he kind of puts it, I can kind of hear that straight away and then just get the band to mold to me. So my point is that my eyes, I always want to have my eyes
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
Meaning that I'll try and keep the chart writing not too detailed and kind
Yeah.
of on an iPad or something out of the way, discreet, so I can, be in the band and have my eyes up and just, mold to the situation.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
my preference is definitely just to, really get inside the music and not have to rely on charts. But
Sure.
yeah, but if I have to, given, the amount of time that I've got, I'll definitely write them, and then I'll probably be using them for the first 20 shows,
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I mean, it's one of those things I think when you how you establish a gig sometimes is how it becomes in your in your DNA a little bit. Like, so if your first few gigs are reading charts and getting used to the people and the musicians, like that's what you kind of feel the gig is in some ways, and it can be really hard to break away from that. But
Totally.
yeah, man, it makes a lot of sense. And
Yeah.
I think it's Kenny Aronoff. I heard him in an interview say, like, I'd much rather read charts, even if it's just, like I said, like real discreet, than, screw up a form,
Yeah.
on a huge TV gig. Like, what's worse when he's, jumping from gig to gig. So yeah, it's super, super
Totally.
important for sure. So, but just speaking about that, when you mentioned about feeling time and reacting to Pete's guitar and the feel that he might put on a certain song, that's definitely something that I hear so many people who play with you talk about, is your time and your pocket and feel and everything, and it's certainly something that comes across really like incredibly in the videos and things you put up, just how deep it is. But it's that age-old question of like, how do you work on that, and I find most drummers that go through the thing, playing with a click, playing with tracks, what have you, but I'm curious to kind of get a little bit deeper into that, and whether there is anything for you specifically that you remember working on that really like deepened your pocket or your sense of time, or like was there any particular exercises or advice you were given that made you go like,
Man.
okay, I think I'm gonna do it?
Yeah, I reckon it's a pretty boring answer, brother. But yeah, it's kind of like what we've all done, I think. But basically, just playing to a click every day,
Yeah.
And I don't think I ever really sit down to practice anything, whether it's maintenance practice or whatever it is. Like the click's always there. It's so easy to access now on our phones. So and yeah, when I was studying with Peter Blick, he'd just say, like, try not to practice anything for less than 5 minutes, So I guess when you choose to work on anything, it can be a maintenance thing or anything, just try to work on it for, I don't know, at least a 5-minute period. And then if you're working in increments, trying to build up a bit of speed, you might work on one thing for 15 minutes, but I'll always have the stopwatch there. I think that just that kind of practice every day, I don't know, it must build the internal clock. But I also found that in the early days, like, coming out of my dad's band and then, starting to play in cover bands and stuff, I really felt like my internal clock kind of deepened when I got the Vanessa Amorosi gig, which was, man, we were running a mini disc player back then.
Wow.
Right.
Okay.
So I'm talking 2001, right? But that gig, it was one of the first gigs that I was like, okay, I'd done some sessions and stuff and, played to click, but in my dad's band, it was like, it was, I'd never played to click track on the gig. So with her, it was like probably 85%, or at least 80% to click, even in the early 2000s. So, and I remember coming back off a tour with her and then playing in a cover band that I was in, filling in with Dale Ryder from Boom Crash Opera. And the bass player, Steve Morgan, I remember him saying to me, far out, man, like your time's feeling solid as a rock. What have you been doing? And I was like, oh, okay, I've been playing in Vanessa's band for a month where, you know, kind of on bigger stages, probably under a little bit of pressure, I've had to lock in to the click track. And I just found that really improved my playing. But which young players now, that's just a natural thing for them, isn't it? Like we all play the click track, you know.
Sure,
And
yeah.
yeah, it's just the day and age now. It's what everybody does, you know. But I did
Yeah.
back then, probably because we weren't playing a click in a live situation as much. As soon as I went out on tour and I was playing to a click, I just had players around me that said, "I feel like your time's gotten better."
Wow. Yeah,
So
right. That's
I don't
interesting.
know.
I guess that says a lot though, because you know I feel like some well, any not just drummers but musicians can practice, you know, for hours on end with a metronome in their practice room, but then, you know, on the gig it doesn't really translate as well. But when
Yeah,
you play with a click, as you say, on a big stage with a real audience under pressure, like it's like you feel it and internalize it differently.
sure.
You know, it's like this actually really, you know, means something and is very important right now. You know,
Sure.
rather than just in a practice room. It's like, oh, I'm a bit ahead, a bit behind, whatever. You know, you
That's
don't, yeah,
right.
yeah,
And I think, mate, I don't know if it's got to do with the, you know, the element of having, you know, other musicians that are trying to play to you. You know, like I've rarely, I mean, except for Dancing with the Stars, or maybe when I played with Tina Arena for a short period, it was a situation where the whole band had the click. But, you know, most of the bands that I've played in, like, you know, Vanessa Sting or where I'm running tracks, it's been a situation where I'm playing to the click, everybody else is playing to me, you know. So I don't know
yeah,
whether
yeah.
those moving parts add to, you know, in a live situation, you just really feeling like where you're pushing and you're pulling and
Yeah,
wind yourself up.
yeah,
I
sure,
don't know if that's
yeah.
as well.
Definitely. Yeah, yeah, because you can feel the other musicians if you're leaning a certain way, they might lean even more that way, and then you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You kind of got to find that balance a bit. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. Yeah,
Interesting.
exactly.
Yeah. And what about now? Like the gigs you're doing most recently, have they been with the click, or is it just
Man,
straight up?
yeah, not really, man. Because
Yeah, right.
obviously, you know, obviously Susie's she's from the very old school. So yeah, that's obviously a full, you know, kind of live rock and roll gig. John's gig actually, when we're doing the Noiseworks and In Excess collection, when we're doing the In Excess stuff, I run a lot of live loops off my SPD. But there's no click kind of. I can even count the band in or play an intro fill. I've just been doing the gig for so long that I'll trigger the loop as I come in, and within a second I'll kind of just mold myself to the loop.
Line it up, yep.
Yeah, but it kind of gives John the freedom to, you know, he can break things down in the middle, and then I can bring stuff back in. But there's no clicks involved there. I'm just triggering everything live.
Great.
And obviously with Pete's gig, it's a very kind of organic singer-songwriter situation. I think, yeah, the most recent thing I did to click was a couple of weeks ago when I went back to my kind of the Prince tribute that I play in with Andrew De Silva. So yeah, so that is heaps of fun. That's that gig's fully to click these days. So but yeah, apart from that, man, everything's kind of been a little bit more of the organic approach in the last years. Yeah.
I think that's great to kind of remind perhaps younger drummers of is there is still a need to be able to play without a click, because you know, as you mentioned, there's the majority of, you know, modern pop R&B gigs these days, it's all tracked, it's all time code, it's all click, so it can be a bit of a you know, a comfort zone to just think, oh no, I'm just going to, you know, do gigs with clicks all the time now. But you know, if you get called up for one of these gigs that you're talking about, and it's like, no, there's no click, man. It was just play it, you know, play it down. It's like, okay, you know, it really, it's
that's right.
It can be uncomfortable. Yeah.
I think an interesting thing with that, man, is like, especially for young guys, is I think one of the biggest things to learn is just, I don't know, kind of the unspoken relationship between drummer and singer. And I think, yeah, I mean, I had that with Vanessa, and I've probably just really refined that with John over the years. Because, you know, when you're young and somebody turns around where you're in a no-click situation and they're like, hey, I need you to bring it back, or, you know, you're playing Hot Chili Woman way too fast, or whatever that might be. You know, when you're a bit of a younger guy, it's easy to take that personally. Like you kind of you tense up and you freak out.
Yeah.
But you know, it takes years to develop, just to develop kind of that thick skin where you're like, oh, you know what, I could have had too many coffees before I went on stage or whatever. This is where you know, that's where the singer's feeling it. They're spitting out the lyrics. It's a hit song. Kind of just find yourself where you can just relax a little bit, or you might be playing too slow. So maybe sometimes bring it up a little bit. And you know, it's really funny with John's gig. You know, a few of the big Noiseworks hits like Touch or No Lies, they're all to bass delay. Like, so the bass is like digga 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 digga. It's like there's either a 16th note delay or a dotted eighth. So you've kind of really got to be listening to the bass. And sometimes, you know, John will turn around 9 times out of 10 in No Lies, and he'll be like, it's too slow. And like, yeah, and I don't get Chris Becker to alter his bass delay at all. All I'll do is I'll sit on top of where he's putting the bass delay. And within a second, that just makes John feel comfortable. And he'll turn back around and he'll start singing the verse and everything's fine. You know, so they're just those little things that, you know, that stuff I feel like just takes years of experience to learn, to be able to just shift, micromanage that stuff really quickly. Yeah, so those more organic kind of situations without click, I find that they're the things that are difficult just to be able to shift and mold. But if you can keep your ears open and try and stay as relaxed as possible, I reckon that's a good tip for young guys.
Oh, for sure.
You know?
Yeah, great. That's invaluable advice, really. I mean, and just knowing like that by too slow, quote unquote too slow, he just wants it like to feel a little,
right.
You know,
kind of like
you
an energy thing, you know, just kind of sit on top of it, and it's like, okay, I got you now.
Yeah. Great. Oh, that's so cool, man. Awesome. Well, I want to kind of shift a little bit and talk about, you know, something we referenced before, like your crazy schedule, and, you know, jumping from one thing to the other, and you kind of a bit kind of going, you know, back to back with some things sometimes. So for you, like, I'm sure you're getting offers all the time for stuff, but how far in advance do you like book yourself? Because, you know, sometimes I think we've all been in a situation where someone's like, hey, are you free, like, you know, August next year for a gig? It's like,
I know.
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, yeah, do you have a certain, like, formula you work with for that, or you just really try and make it work as it comes in? And how do you approach that?
Yeah, it's oh, man, that's the golden ticket, isn't it? For all of us. It's like, how do you deal with that situation? It's like, I think all of us are constantly juggling, and you kind of always feel like you're pissing somebody off.
Yeah.
You know, you try and stick to that. You know, if someone calls you first, you try and stick to that. I'm going to try and hold to those dates that I've been booked for. But it's always a juggling situation because we're freelance guys. You know, you can be booked, have 2 gigs in the diary, and then all of a sudden you know, somebody comes up and tries to book you for 30, 40, you know. So I think it's a bit of a case by case situation, and I try to I just try to be really honest. Like, if somebody's trying to book me way in advance, and it's you know, it's a short amount of gigs, I'll just try to be honest and say, look, I'm available at the moment, and then try and get them to kind of contact me again when it's getting closer to the date, which then you can kind of run the risk of losing the gig in that way.
Sure.
But you know, I've had to been pretty loyal to John, because he you know, I think I've been doing between 70 and 100 shows a year with John for a pretty long time now.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, then if if something comes up, like with Pete, I'm always just checking the lay of the land, and yeah, man, it's one of those
Yeah.
things where I don't know, you're just trying to make
Yeah.
it work, you know.
Yeah. It is a tricky one. Yeah, and I guess there is no real like right or wrong way to do it. It's just yeah, like you say, it's a case by case thing. But I find it interesting with you, especially too. Like you have a young family, from what I see,
Oh yeah,
online.
actually,
So,
it looks like I have a young family, but I'm actually just an uncle. So
oh,
that's
okay,
that's
all right.
that's my niece and nephew. But
Oh,
yeah.
beautiful.
So I only have one sibling, my little brother, and we're super tight. And
Yeah.
I kind of started minding his little girl. His wife's a nurse, so I started minding his little girl when she was one. Yeah, in the lockdown days. So
Sure.
you know, when you're minding, little Bubba, who's 1 year old, we kind of, yeah, we're super super
Got pretty
close.
close.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so I don't have a young family. I'm actually still single.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
but yeah, look, it's just, yeah, managing tours and managing gigs, I think, is still difficult for all of us, you know.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I guess that's it. It doesn't really matter like what situation you're in that side of things. It's still the balance of even just social life. Getting back home to see friends and just be in your space again. If you're
Totally.
if you're away for too long, it can drive you a bit crazy. But yeah, no, that's yeah, totally. Like yeah, it's a valid thing to think about. I think is just yeah, having the balance of all of that stuff, because if one of things is out of whack, it can just change your whole perception of music sometimes, really. And
Yeah,
like how you approach a gig if you haven't been home for a certain amount of time, or you haven't seen people you care
yeah,
about for a certain amount of time.
yeah.
It's a hard
I
one.
mean, you were away with your show for a long period of time, weren't you?
Yeah. I was lucky to have my family on the road with me, but yeah, I know certain people I worked with certainly didn't.
Yeah,
So they, were coming home as much as they could, and yeah, it's tough, man. It's real
yeah.
tough. But
Sure.
yeah, I guess for you, also I wanted to ask about like some of the high pressure stuff that you do, like the bigger gigs where it's a TV gig or arena shows or anything like that. And maybe it doesn't happen so much anymore that you do have so much experience, but some up and coming drummers that I speak to, who might have their first bigger gig in front of a bigger audience or televised thing, and yeah, they kind of freak out with all of that pressure and think that they got the music all down and it's all cool, but like when you get into a certain environment, you can totally like lose it sometimes. So
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, like, did you go through that? Did you, what was your adjustment to like, playing those bigger venues and bigger artists and managing kind of the mental side of,
Yeah.
performance?
Man, I think once you do live TV,
Mm.
I reckon live TV is just the most stressful. That's why I take my hat off to my bros that are doing it at the
Mm.
moment, like Andy Fisher
Mm.
and Jason
Mm.
Hera on Australian
Mm.
Idol. But yeah, it's just I think yeah, gig pressure for me, like in terms of playing a big gig, like if I've had the time to prepare, like we've been talking about,
Mm.
if
Mm.
I've done my prep for a tour, and then
Mm.
I've done some tour rehearsals, full
Mm.
production rehearsals, and then it doesn't matter how big the room is.
Mm.
I always kind of feel comfortable in that situation.
Mm.
Yeah, I think the live TV thing, yeah, like the Dancing with the Stars thing, that was a different kind of pressure, and something that I had to get used to as the season kind of progressed.
Mm.
But yeah, it's also really fun, just such a fun thing when you can
Mm.
like learn a bunch of stuff that week,
Mm.
rehearse it on the fly, and then be able to
Mm.
nail it, on the Sunday on a live show.
Mm.
So yeah, I don't know. I think you just, yeah, the best way to calm your nerves is to do as much homework as you possibly can.
Yeah,
That's what I,
sure.
you know,
Yeah, yeah, great. Yeah.
yeah, the more homework you do, the more comfortable you feel with the material that you're playing, then I
Hmm.
think the more you're going to calm your own nerves.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
yeah, that's so basic, but that's probably my only tip.
Oh no, it makes so much sense, and I think that it's sometimes overlooked, just that basic preparation, because you kind of get clouded with all the other elements that might be taking place, and rather than just like distilling it down to like, I just have to play these songs,
Yeah,
the best that I can, and if I can get
yeah,
that down, and yeah, feel confident enough in yourself to do that, then that's, yeah, you're
yeah,
gonna set yourself up so much better.
for
Yeah,
sure, for sure.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, do you do like aside from the touring and some TV stuff, do you do much recording at the moment, like session stuff, or is it mostly out on the road?
Yeah, bits and pieces, man. I was probably doing, a lot more sessions kind of a couple of years back.
Mm,
But yeah, these days, like, yeah, got like Tim Henwood, our guitar player who
mm,
plays with John Stevens. He books me for some stuff. He's got a studio that he works out of, so an
great.
artist will come through and he'll be like, "Oh, do you want to play on this record?"
Mm-hmm,
Yeah, my good friend Marcel Yamuni,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
fantastic guitar player and
mm,
player and producer.
mm-hmm,
Used to book me for a heap of stuff that would come through
mm,
his studio. And yeah, then bits and pieces along the way. Yeah, I love the studio thing, man. Like it's
mm,
my recording's one of my favorite things to do.
mm.
I flew to Hawaii last year actually and played on some new stuff for John Stevens, which
Wow.
it's not even out yet. But
Mm-hmm,
yeah, that was a really fun time. So I enjoy the studio thing as much as a live thing for sure.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah,
I
great.
don't get as much of an opportunity these days, but I know you've got quite the nice home studio set.
Uh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, I think it's I don't know. For me, yeah, I've always been interested in it, so I guess it's just evolved over time, and yeah, having an interest in doing it, and yeah, it's certainly been beneficial. I think to be able to do stuff
oh,
from home,
totally, man.
and then yeah, kind of have a better idea going into another facility. But yeah, I mean, I think it's all peaks and troughs, right? Like, sometimes it'll be like, it sounds like at the moment you're in a really busy like touring, stage of things, and but it might turn around and end up in the studio for months on end doing something. So, but yeah, I think like again, like the versatility thing and the adaptability thing. I was just going to ask you whether you consciously changed anything about your playing, any little tips or tricks or advice that you were given or that you could share about recording,
Yeah,
specifically. Kind of heard, obviously you don't go as hard in the studio, like just
yeah. Well,
volume wise, but yeah,
that's probably the main thing, man.
yeah,
Which
yeah,
took me a long time to learn because I've always been, you're a product of the gigs that you do, and
mm,
yeah, that's another big adjustment is just like getting in the studio and being able to say, okay, I'm gonna hit the drums a lot softer
yeah,
because
yeah,
I'm not going to choke them out, and it sounds a lot
mm-hmm,
better when I try and pull the sound out of a drum as opposed to being the rock and roll guy that just chokes it. Um,
yeah, yeah,
that's probably the biggest adjustment when it comes
yeah,
to like
sure,
that's the thing that I find the hardest because
mm,
I'm just naturally that guy that tenses up and digs in,
yeah, okay,
so
sure,
that's
sure,
probably the biggest adjustment for me. And then
yeah,
just always just taking the right amount of different snare drums to a session. So
yeah, sure, yeah,
so you've got options for sounds and
mm,
um, same with cymbals and ride cymbals
mm,
and hi hats, I guess.
mm,
Um,
mm, mm.
and then yeah, and then if I'm doing a session, like mostly yeah, that's when I love to write a little roadmap,
Yeah.
just, or even if I'm learning the stuff on the day, just getting to play the track in the studio and just write a really basic little roadmap. And then just tackle the song from there, but
Yeah, great.
once again, just basic stuff, man.
Yeah. No, that's totally valid for sure. I just, when you were mentioning about gear and what you bring to a session, it reminded me of something I wanted to touch on with you with your touring at the moment. Like when you're out, is it all backline gear that you're using mostly, or is it your own drums? And if it is mostly backline gear, is there anything that you take of your own to each gig to make you feel like, comfortable?
Yeah.
Or that you want to use? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. It kind of changes a little bit. I mean, it's always, I'm mostly using backline, so I'm always getting DW kits everywhere, which I'm, so fortunate that they've got so much gear everywhere. But yeah, I'll always have my cymbals and my snare, and snare drums will change, depending on the gig. And then, like when I'm traveling with John, I'll have my sample pad with me. So it'll basically be cymbal, snare, sampler. Then when I'm playing with Suzi, I'll ditch the sampler and I'll travel with my double pedal. Because,
cool.
She kind of does a little featured drum thing where she comes and plays half the kit. We play a little solo together. So cool. I need to be able to play quarter notes on the kick drum from the left side of the kit. So
cool.
If the kit rocks up and even though a double pedal's spec'd, there's no double pedal, then I'm caught out because I can't play the kick from the left side of the kit. So I'll always travel with a double pedal for her gig. But yeah, and then with John, the last couple of years, probably since 2022, we've been really blessed that we've actually John's kind of had his own truck with production. So the tours that we've done of, even the Superstars thing we did with Kate Sobrano last year, we had a truck that was pretty much the only place it didn't go was Perth, I think. I think it even went to Tassie. But that was great because I had my own kit, road based.
Great.
That's
a dream.
yeah, it was just great.
Yeah.
Just playing stuff and even have a couple of spare snare drums that you can swap out. That's like a luxury that we don't normally get. But yeah, most of the time it's backline.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Great. Cool. Yeah, that's another thing that is good to put out there, that adaptability to be able to play, gear that you're, unfamiliar with, even if it is like the correct series or the correct sizes or whatever. There's always that little bit of adjustment sometimes with just how it reacts, so
and in a festival situation as well, where you're kind of like, you can't, if you're in the middle of a run where you're playing all your own rooms, but then you get into the festival situation, it's like you're coming off your kit being set up perfectly by a tech every night, so you feel so comfortable. As soon as you hit a festival situation, it's a 20-minute changeover and you're sharing a kit that's probably, like you said, they're the correct sizes, but you're getting on and trying to make it work and getting the tech to put your sample pad up and can I have this in my ears, please? Within 20 minutes. So just being able to kind of center yourself, sit on the kit where you're a little bit uncomfortable, maybe the angles might be a little bit wonky, and being able to just play. I think that's really important as well. Because if you rely on everything just being perfect in those festival situations, you might feel like a bit of a fish out of water. Just got to just click into a different headspace and go, all right, going to be a little bit uncomfortable here, but just make it happen,
Totally. Yeah. And that's really interesting because it's not necessarily something you can, I mean, I guess you can, like you can't practice something like that unless you purposely, set up your kit in a weird way and then try to adjust. And, there's probably merit in that, but it only really comes from experience and doing that stuff a lot, like from your point of view to know how to be able to make things work and still play, confidently. Cause, at the end of the day, like the people, the audience and the singer, they don't really care what angle your snare drum's on, or if it feels a little bit weird, they just want you to deliver. So yeah, that's cool to hear, man.
Yeah.
I think something else that I wanted to chat with you about is, I guess most of what I've been seeing you play, at least in recent times, has been through Instagram and social media, and I wanted to kind of get your take on social media in general for musicians and drummers, and like the importance of it, I suppose, in today's day and age. Like, do you see it as like an essential tool that musicians kind of need to have, or do you think that there's still space for musicians to have successful careers without being visible online?
Yeah, look, I think it's I'm really bad at it, but I think it's probably massively important, isn't it? In this day and age, like it's just it's such a tool, and that if it's used in the correct way, which I don't even, like I said, I don't even know what the correct way is. Like you kind of try and stay a little bit relevant by, okay, I'm doing this. You pop stuff up every now and then. But the young guys these days, man, that they come from this world where it's social media has always been normal. They're just masters at like putting stuff up and editing stuff and having great content. Yeah, look, I definitely would encourage any young guy. Like I said, I think I'm the last of. I was kind of just before the social media world. I kind of came up in a different way where you were like, I don't want to play with that guy. Okay, I'm going to have to go to his gig every Friday night and just watch and hope that maybe they get me up for a jam, or it was kind of like so different. When I was 18 or when I was 20, it was so different to now. But yeah, I think you'd be silly to not utilize social media. Why not? I mean, it's there,
Yeah.
and it's the new way of doing things. So why not? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. No, that's great. Very interesting. I think like the thing I like about what you do put up is it's real stuff. Like there's so much, like I don't know, fake, I suppose, and that's not the right word, but like very edited and correct and clean, and kind of artificial content that's put up, by musicians, but everything you put up is like really genuine, and you're out there doing it, and it's great. It's got an energy and a vibe, and it's like all so, the playing so good all the time, and I think that's just it's something that I love to see. It's just real playing on real gigs, and that's great. And I think you don't necessarily need to do all the algorithm calculations and blah 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 to use social media. And I think that's where people get turned off of it a little bit. Is it's like they think it's very complicated, but like I said, just by you putting up what you do, that's great, and it just gives you presence, I think.
For sure, that's the really basic way of doing things, isn't it? Is like, and then I mean, if you can get a handle on all that other stuff and being able to do it where you can kind of get into the algorithm and or get stuff properly recorded, I think that's all a great tool as well, but definitely if you're gonna the basic side of things is why not put your stuff up for the world to see. The platform's there, and that's just going to give you more eyes in it, more eyes on you, more of an opportunity to get called for the next gig, I suppose.
Yeah, that's it, for sure. Cool. Yeah, that's great to hear, man. I don't want to take up too much more of your time, because I know you've flat out with a million different gigs, but I wanted to kind of just wrap up by asking what you're working on next, and where people might be able to come and see you play, or if you're out on the road with anyone in particular coming up soon.
Man, I'm coming off I'm coming off like such a massive stint of touring, which is so lucky that the last 6 months have just been crazy. So funnily enough, I'm actually coming into some downtime at the moment.
Great.
Yeah, so I've got like a just a couple of bits and pieces that I'm doing, but I don't really think any tours, block tours are kind of really taking shape until probably September, October. So I've got a few things that I need to do on this house that I've been putting off. So I'm gonna focus on that. So I'm looking at kind of what you've got happening, man. Probably not to that extent, but I'm tossing up between my spare room and my garage, just wanting to soundproof a space, because all my prep for my tours, I've still got a kit set up in my little dungeon at my parents' place, 5 kilometers away from here. So that's still, if I need to make noise, I go there and my old practice kit's set up. Otherwise, if I'm driving people crazy, I'll hire a studio that my good friend owns around the corner here, and I'll woodshed for a couple of days. But I've always wanted to have my own space, basically if I need to teach a little bit, or in COVID, I was just recording I started recording drums in my living room here.
Yeah, great.
I got some high ceilings, and it was great because I didn't know what the hell I was doing, but I bought an interface and a few mics, and I started really enjoying myself till I started pissing off these neighbours here. Which I've got a new neighbour now, and she's cool. She's started off being a musician as well, so she's kind of a little bit cooler with a bit of noise. But I'm like,
great.
I want to soundproof a space and just have a little space for me where I can have a kit mic'd up at all times. Yep. So to be honest, I reckon that's going to be my next little project while I'm on a download for touring.
Yeah, that's super exciting. Now's the time to do it for sure.
So I'll probably be quizzing you, bro. I'll be asking you a few questions.
Oh man, it's a black hole of information, a black hole of money. It just never ends, but it's great. You once you get it up and running, and especially if you can, soundproof it at your place, that's a dream. Yeah. That's awesome. Sure. So yeah, man, for sure, anytime.
Yeah.
Well, Johnny, this has been so great, man. Awesome, honestly. Great to connect like this and hear your advice and experience. It's super, super, super valuable. So
cheers,
I really appreciate it, and hope we can see each
mate.
other in person sometime.
Yeah, for sure. Hope we can meet in person sometime soon. I'll let you know if I'm in Adelaide anyway.
Please do.
And you do the same, mate, if you come down this way.
For sure. Oh, I'd love that.
Beautiful, brother.
Thanks, man.
Awesome, Ben. Thanks, bro.